This is NtsFranz. This is the mastermind behind the application called Spark.
I joined Ignite, the team,
Yes.
a long time ago. VTS was when he's been working on this program. He was called it Echovr session grabber at the time. Also around that time I had 24/7 Spectator kind of on Twitch stream that's still going on now.
Yes, yes.
Every match that is spectated, you could get some stats from it. There was a little simple website that you could see people's stats on, like of matches that were recorded. At the time, the most anybody had was like 20 matches on there, right? It's like, it's kind of small scale compared to how it is now. Now you can see on the website, I don't know, it's like 100,000 people or something, including spectators. If you only include actual players, it's like 40,000, something like that. That was the original port of Spark, what is previously called Echovr Session Grabber, and then it switched its name to IgniteBot. I thought it needed like a shorter, snappier name, called it Spark eventually. Which is also kind of Ignite, fire themed. There's also Spark Mini. I guess we haven't mentioned that.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Just for context, this is a mobile app version. You can open your phone, you press a button, generates a link that you can then send over to the cast.
Hello, my name is MoneyMitch26, and this next guest, this next top of the pop, another IRL one in real life, it's one of them ones where it's if you know, you know. If you don't know, then cool, you'll learn a lot here. But if you know, like, you'll be excited when you find out who this is. This person has been, if you're into competitive VR, you should be very interested in who this is. They've been holding it all together, quietly, humbly working in the background. They are responsible for the application, the third-party application that we call Spark. Incredibly useful for getting casters into your games. If you're a competitive player, this has helped us cast your games so easily. So yeah, we'll talk about all of that, but what I find very interesting is how this person's mind works. I already mentioned how humble they are, but they don't care. They're not looking for recognition. They're just looking to fix the next problem. They're already thinking about the next problem, then the next problem. Their mind is just solving problems. The next. This is NtsFranz. Let's get into it.
Hello, my name is MoneyMitch26. This is the top of the pop IRL in real life, and I have a bit of a legend, a bit of a behind the scenes kind of. No, here we go. Actually, everyone I interview has this like humble, like, shut up, stop it, tell me more. No, you're not doing that at all. You're completely humble. This is NtsFranz. This is the mastermind behind the application called Spark. If you don't know what that is, it's probably because you still reaping the benefits of this application, but you haven't been on the back end of this thing. If you're into production of any kind, or you've been casted, you'll know what Spark is. It's an application that is so fundamental to the way that the production side of things work in this game that we call Echovr, particularly competitive play. It's very important, but there's more to it. The person that created that, you're a person,
I'm a
you
human.
have a career and everything like that. Nice to meet you, man. How are you?
I'm doing well.
I literally met you 20 minutes ago.
It's true.
We started talking, you started talking about your studies, your PhD, and I was like, we need to be recording this. And you were like, yeah, sure.
Let's do it.
So, yeah, how are you doing? How'd you get in? You flew in, right?
I flew in, yeah. Not too long of a flight, took the bus and the train down to the hotel, and now I'm here.
Now you're here in Toronto. Echo North is our LAN, first LAN in Canada, I believe.
First, as far as I know.
Yeah, and it's all kicked off. Like right now we're recording this on a Saturday. Personally, I've played 2 matches. I managed to get on the casting team as well. I've done 1 cast, and it's all kicking off downstairs, but we just found a quiet corner upstairs, have this little conversation. So I led with it, talking about Spark. How did that start? Was it requested, or did you just have the idea and you're like, this is what's missing?
So I didn't initially create it. So originally, this was a few years ago, I guess. VTS X King. So how it started kind of was I joined Ignite, the team.
Yes.
A long time ago, and VTS was working on this program for, I guess it was.
Is VTS the guy with the dreads?
No.
Who's that? Who am I thinking of? Because I met someone at Tyra Land. He was the coolest guy in the world.
You're thinking of Far.
Far.
So Far is kind of like head honcho Ignite man.
Yeah.
So he was on the team at the time as well, in the actual Echovr team. And so I became friends with the VTS and stuff, and he's been working on this program. It was called Echovr Session Grabber at the time.
Okay.
It's kind of a way to, for some league, I forgot the name of which league it was. I think it was CBRE originally, or that, or Pizza League, I'm not sure.
Pizza League.
Pizza League was kind of the precursor to Vermal, as far as I understood it.
Okay.
So it was a transition between ESL and Vermal, or the Pizza League in between, kind of. Anyway, the idea for it was you try to automate some parts of the process of recording scores and stuff and stats.
Yeah.
And so for a long time, he was working on that. It was originally a console application, just like logging API data from the API that the game just included.
Yeah.
And then he wanted to start making a GUI for it so that you could, as a person running production side of things, could enter correct the scores if they were wrong, stuff like that. So if there's something wrong with the way it was processing the data, you could then check it and finalize it and enter that into the database for the actual scores that happened at the time. And then it was still called Echovr Session Grabber at that time, and I kind of joined the project a bit, said, I can help out with some things. I was my teammate at the time. I kind of worked on it a bit. We then also around that time VTS also started this 24/7 Spectator, kind of on Twitch stream that's still going on now.
Yes.
And we're running that program on that computer that was running the Spectator. So they kind of, every match that it spectated, it would get some stats from it. There was a little simple website that you could see people's stats on, of matches that were recorded. At the time, the most anybody had was 20 matches on there, right? It's kind of small scale compared to how it is now. And now you can see on the website, I don't know, it's 100,000 people or something that it's seen, including spectators. If you only include actual players, it's 40,000, something like that. People that of people that the Spectator has seen, and so that was the original port of Spark, what is previously called Echovr Session Grabber, and then it switched its name to IgniteBot, because what everybody was calling it, because kind of calling the Spectator that joins your match, it has the URL of the Ignite website on it, and we call it IgniteBot because it's a bot that joins your matches, and so we called it IgniteBot for a while. I thought it needed a shorter, snappier name. We called it Spark eventually, which is also kind of Ignite, fire themed.
Yeah,
and so eventually, so VTS hasn't been working on it for a while, so now I'm kind of the developer of the program, but he was the original idea creator and stuff like that. And so now it's got a lot more GUI involved, a lot more features, and for a long time it wasn't public, and it was just running on that server, on that computer that was spectating matches, and people were like, can I have this? Can I run it on my matches? Can I contribute to this data that's on the website? Because people were using the website saying, we got this win rate or whatever, look people up. And if everybody was running it, then we could contribute to that data. And so people wanted it to be public, and so eventually we did make it public and clean some stuff up, make it a bit more user-friendly and stuff.
When you say public, this is when
people could actually download it for themselves. For a long time, it wasn't it was just a program that we were using internally for this.
But it was called Session Grabber.
Echovr Session Grabber was the original name, and then it eventually was called IgniteBot for quite a while.
But that suggests that it was an app that you were using, production teams?
We were using, I guess some leagues were probably using it for a bit.
Okay. Because that sounds, if I'm understanding correctly, that was the purpose. The purpose was...
So the idea is that, I guess some background in how the Echo API works for people also who don't know.
Yeah. In layman terms, if you can.
Yeah, the Echovr program on your desktop, the PC version at least at the time. Originally you had to launch it with specific arguments to actually get this API to run, but it's hosting its local web server kind of. So it's hosting a website that can only be accessed from the same computer that you're on, which has all the data of what the current state of the match is. So this player is here and their hands are here, they're rotated this way. All the information that you could possibly want to recreate that match if you recorded every frame. And so that data, the endpoint is called session. And so that's the current session. And so if it's grabbing the session, it's the idea with the session grabber.
Okay, and then from there expanding, because there's a replay viewer, is that?
That's a separate project that was developed by Sneaky Evil and Zenith.
Okay.
Originally.
Yeah.
And I've also contributed to that.
Because it's integrated, right?
It's not integrated.
Is it not? Oh, okay.
Yet, at least. So I mean, it's not integrated in any way.
But like, you collect the file. You collect the
file.
file.
So the replay files, which is just the API data kind of raw. Spark can make those so that you can view them in the replay viewer. Originally, they also had their own way to program to grab that, but now that everybody kind of who's working on this kind of thing has Spark, they can just use Spark to do that.
Yeah, but that's massive. That's huge to record the replay file.
Yeah, and not enough people use it, I think, because of how useful that. I mean, it's not. I'm advertising because I'm not actually a program I made.
Okay,
but yeah, no, it's a good analysis tool that I think a lot of people could benefit from. Especially now, I guess I've added a few things like lines between nearby players. You can see passing lanes and that kind of stuff. Like heat maps of historical player positions within that whole match. That kind of stuff is in there now.
I've seen something to do with heat maps, and I've seen like illustrations of the arena with like marks on the wall where like the majority of bounce shots had bounced before going into the goal. There's heat maps on the goal.
There's somebody did some.
Was that separate?
Some maps of like where bounce shots could exist.
Like they illustrated the data and they put it's a bounce shot, but also on the goal, showing like where people score from in the arena and then like where.
Yeah, so I've got that on the on the Ignite Metrics website, which is kind of branched out the data part of the Ignite to Ignite Metrics. Because there was also the Ignite team that was previously Joker and called Ignite.
Yeah.
And on that, if you search a player up, you can see like where in the goal that specific player scores, or where in the arena they score. So like a 3D model on that website that can show you the place marks of the score. It's not necessarily a heat map, but it is.
It's illustrating the data that you're collecting. And talking about third parties that use this kind of technology in the application, what are they called? There's an application that's coming out, a startup, where they're using the replay file of data, and they're having a Spectator app where you can view.
You're talking about Virtex Stadium?
I couldn't remember the name.
Yeah.
The name slipped my mind. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a super interesting project that they're working on.
Were you ever involved at some point?
I wasn't involved in it. No.
Okay.
I've known about it for a while. I guess.
I'm surprised they haven't pulled you in for like the man for that project. In my opinion.
I wasn't interested in doing it at the time, so.
Okay.
It's a similar project. They're not using any of my software for it. It's all like the replay files.
Oh,
they have their own stuff for that. But yeah, it's using the same API data that I'm using. It's just that not actually stuff that I've worked on.
I see.
One thing I'm actually personally much more interested in is the cool details of. So replay files are just like it's JSON data. I don't know if you know what JSON data is. Just like text. It's text data saying okay, position, and then it has an X and it has a Y and it has all these letters saying that this is describing what the number is coming up, and then it has a number, for example, 0.5679332. And it's this long decimal, and just to save that, you need to store each digit or each letter separately. So the file size, because of that, is large. Whereas if you just stored that number as a number in binary, it could be 1 or 2 bytes versus a large number of bytes. And so there's a lot of inefficiency in the way that's stored right now with the replay files. So currently echo replay is the file format for replays. It's just that, but in a zip folder. And that actually does a pretty good job of compressing. But the original data is still like 2 gigs per match. So it's just massive. And so if you want to read that, you have to first unzip it, like the replay viewer. It needs to first unzip it internally and then read it. And that takes a while because there's a lot of data that has to parse through. So what I was working on that I really enjoyed was another replay format, a way of saving that same data called Butter, because it was based on one exhibit who worked on this many years ago called Milk. I don't know exactly why he called it Milk, but I call mine Butter because it was meant to be an improvement upon that. And it's using like binary compression format, the custom binary compression formats.
What in layman's terms?
So, like what I said earlier about like
zip folders.
It is in the end zipped, I guess, on top of that. But so the idea is that you don't store the text for the number. You store the actual number, which can be done in a lot fewer bytes. And if let's say you only moved a a little bit between frames, it'll subtract those two numbers and then store a smaller number, which you can store with the same precision in a smaller amount of bytes.
So from moving from A to B, you're recording, instead of the absolute position, you're recording the distance. So move to.
And then it's a really small number in which you can store in a less precise number format, which just means that you use less data to store the same information. Which I think like technologically is really cool. It's just, and it is in the end a lot less data. So it's around 1/5 the size of a zipped echo replay file, which means it's around like 99% less data than an unzipped one. So it's really small in comparison. It's difficult because every time the API changes, every time the game is updated, it needs to change as well, because then it wouldn't include the new data, because it's easy if you just have a text, it's just a file.
So is this something you're working on at the moment, or is this?
I have it released now, and it's in Spark, so you can check the box additionally for say .butter files. And replay viewer should also be able to read them. It's something that's actually happened kind of recently. The most recent update for Spark added that publicly, but it's been a thing for a while.
Are there any other product features that you're bringing, or you've got on your little roadmap of?
One thing that's coming, so there's also Spark Mini. I guess we haven't mentioned that.
I forgot about that. Yeah.
That's the newest feature that's coming to that is that you can click on links.
And this
Discord.
is, just for context, this is a mobile app version.
Mobile app version of
This
Spark.
app currently, prior, has always been on the desktop. This app is for your mobile. And correct me if I'm wrong, the purpose of this is that when your match, so you're in a competitive match, it's being spectated by someone else, you can open your phone and it's plug and play. You press a button and your link generates a link that you can then send over to the caster.
A link referring to that specific match, and if you share that link over to Discord, through Discord, somebody else can open that link and join your match without having to do friend requests or meta friend requests or whatever that's completely broken right now.
Yes, I'm happy talking about that because it was already clunky. The way you would add each other in Echovr was clunky, just not user friendly.
It's nice when you're in game and you're already friends with somebody and you can just invite them from a game and they're also in game. And
but you bring your brother in, you bring your cousin, whoever, you bring someone into the game. Oh, you have to add me. Okay, how do I do that?
Setting it up for the first time is a bit.
And it's too clunky, it's too much friction, and it's just stopping adoption of the game.
So the idea.
And it's got worse.
So Spark on desktop, if you have a Windows computer at all in your household, I would recommend using that because it just has a lot more features. Right? I've been working on it a lot longer. Spark Mini is just for people who don't have a computer maybe near the play space, or
Which, by the way, is a very valid use case.
It's common.
Very common.
But in general, if you can use the desktop version, I still recommend that. I just don't like phones, and developing for Spark Mini is also slower because of that, because I don't use it myself at all.
Is it on Android and iOS?
Android and iOS, there's a Linux version as well. It's not necessarily for mobile development, it's also just like a cross-platform version, so it could be built for any platform, including Windows. It's just that, why would you use it on Windows if you already have
the proper one?
But what sparked this conversation was new features.
Was that a pun?
New features, one of the things that I have on my personal phone right now is you can click on links on Spark Mini. So previously that wouldn't do anything because it doesn't register that link with actual Spark applications. But now you have to copy the link and then paste it into Spark Mini to join. And now you can click on mobile as well. So hopefully that makes it even faster for you to join. That's coming at some point.
On top of all of this work, which is really appreciated for the community, you're also doing a PhD at the moment.
I am, yeah. I'm doing stuff in the VR field, so I'm in the VR research lab, mostly VR interaction research. Right now the current project is various locomotion techniques in VR, so obviously we love this one that Echovr uses. This free form, you use your hands to define where your body goes. And that's something that is also used in a similar way in lots of drawing applications. So gravity sketch, medium, these kind of things where you manipulate kind of the thing that you're drawing on. It doesn't every time move the floor around you, sometimes that stays static. But the idea is the same. The context of the thing that you're working on is changed in position by your hands. And that's something that is surprisingly, for a smooth locomotion system, comfortable. Because in general, prior VR research has always said, don't do smooth locomotion if you want to keep your users comfortable in all situations. So like stick movement where you slide, it's not as good. That's why people use teleporting. That's why it's so common to have games that have teleporting movement as the default, at least, because you don't get sick with that. But there's also a different problem with that in presence. So presence is the idea of you feeling like you're in the virtual world. And if you are teleporting, then you have a context switch of like, how did I get to this new place? You get lost perhaps in your world. You don't feel like you belong in this room or wherever you are. And so if you have a continuous movement system, it's better. And so the idea is to combine a teleport with a smooth locomotion system, so you can do it for long distances, you would be able to teleport, and for shorter distances you would move yourself, but with a high amount of drag, so you don't, like in Echo, there's no drag, right? So you keep on going, hit walls and stuff. But that wouldn't be necessarily as good for a work kind of application.
Sure.
But let's say you're at a desk, at a virtual desk, and you want to do something, being able to just adjust your position by grabbing the world moving around would be very useful.
Are you familiar with Workrooms?
Yes, I've used it,
Yeah, what do you think about that kind of stuff?
I haven't used it in a little while, but yeah, no, it's an interesting avenue to go on. Obviously, the hardware needs to be better before people actually use it for actual work.
Have you got a Quest Pro?
I have not got a Quest Pro, no.
Are you not planning to?
The lab is going to get.
Oh, fair. Yeah. So
you
you have
I'll
access
be able
to
to use them, yeah. So I haven't gotten one personally, partially because of that.
Yeah, fair.
But yeah, no, it's going to be super interesting for our stuff for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, and also the hand tracking advantages that provides. So part of my work right now with that same project we were talking about with locomotion techniques is making those work both with controllers and with hand tracking. So locomotion with hand tracking movement is actually, or hand tracking interaction is actually not really a solved problem right now. There's a lot of different ways to do it. I mean, it's solved, it's been solved, right? But it's not like there's a decided upon solution that a lot of people tended to use.
Did you watch the Oculus? Did you watch the Meta Connect? I don't know what the branding is at the moment.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah. What do you think about? Because I'll come back to that later. What did you think about the Workrooms aspect of that? Introducing the new features that are on the way.
They're pushing it hard, and it's going to be interesting where that goes. And the Quest Pro is obviously a good step in that direction. I don't think Quest Pro is still going to be like that. People are actually going to prefer to work on that over just using some monitors.
Right.
I mean, I've tried, right? Like being in a research lab, I'm trying to like envision what this would look like and stuff.
Yeah.
So, like, some days I just like try to work in headset and using what it's called, Dash, Oculus Dash on PC VR, so you can see your desktop and you can pull up monitors and stuff.
Too clunky?
It's good. It's just that your headset's uncomfortable after a while, and then the resolution isn't good enough.
What headset uses Rift S?
I generally use Quest. Now the lab generally just uses Quest 2 for everything because Quest 2 has made VR accessible in a way that no other headset, or Quest in general,
1000%.
that no other headset has. We have lots of fancy headsets, like Varjo XR3 and stuff. These $7,000 headsets. They're technically better, but like you can't bring it in a small little box and use it. You can bring it like in a similar size box if you fit the cable in there. And
Is the what's it called?
Varjo?
Varjo. Is that? Are you seeing that used at all? Because it seems like a very just a technical marvel. It's like look how much resolution.
Cool. It is really cool.
Is there any application to it?
Design work, basically, collaborative design.
Genuinely, people.
I think there are companies that are working with it.
Yeah.
I don't know how much of that is actually giving them real world benefit, or if they're just using this as a future technology demonstration, maybe for like getting in on this boat that is going to be leaving at some point. But yeah, I don't know if it's really here yet. Where it's going to be useful is everybody has their personal headset or something. Right, and then it's just more natural. The problem with VR and everything is friction. The friction of getting into so I want to meet you in VR. Let's say we are both very comfortable with Arena, and so we can open up that app that we probably have on the very top left of the Quest Dash thing, right? Like the most recent used app. And then friend requests. We know how to manage all these links and all these kind of things to get into the same world with each other. But if you don't, then it's a complicated process. And there's no one deciding way of like, okay, I just want to call you somehow and get into your virtual world. There's a lot of friction in it. You gotta first find your headset. Oh, it's not charged. I gotta plug it in. My controller batteries are dead. I gotta find new controller batteries. Oh, I lost one of my controllers. And oh, Guardian needs to be set up again. Like, there's so many things that can cause friction to just mean that you don't meet in. You call them on Zoom or something.
Yeah.
And that needs to change before it's actually used in a large capacity.
So I will say I am biased, because I don't know if I mentioned to you before, I work on the Workrooms app in London, the studios in London.
Yeah,
for Workrooms. I'm in test. So I'm actually in the app a lot. I use Workrooms, I don't know, the most 8 hours a day, but maybe realistically 4 hours a day. I'm in Workrooms. So I'm definitely biased because I'm in that.
Yeah.
Publicly they announced that they're working with Microsoft Teams and Zoom. So in my personal opinion, and of course I'm biased, I use the app, but that when they implement that with Microsoft and Zoom, I think that's huge in terms of adoption, and it deals with a lot of that friction.
So from what I understand from that, it's a way to enable hybrid meetings, right? So somebody could be joining on a 2D thing. The question then is, okay, yes, the people who are comfortable with VR are going to be joining in VR. Is that providing any benefit to the people who aren't in VR?
Okay, so say we're in a meeting right now. Yeah. We're in a real life meeting room. We have a computer or something hooked up to the TV, and we connect on Zoom, colleague A, colleague B, colleague C, and then a fourth tile, it's going to be another tile, and it's going to be the view of another room, but that room's going to be virtual. In that room, we're going to see 3 avatars. All 3 of those people are in our meeting, cross-platform, but it's a virtual room.
So, if I were a desktop user in that meeting, not in VR, I would probably prefer to have the people on video, right? The people who are currently in VR, it's better experience. It's actually worse for them to be in VR for me as a desktop user than in VR. So the benefit is when there are multiple people all in VR. So for them, it's a better experience to see them interact.
That's true. Yeah, you really want to see why is that?
Just where is the benefit coming from, right? Is body language, that kind of stuff that you can't necessarily see on video, or I don't know. There's also other things like in VR you have more of a guarantee, especially in Quest, that they're not doing other things on their laptop, which can often happen in meetings and video meetings, right? So you have your webcam up there, but you're just doing your shopping on your laptop or something, right? And you're not completely paying attention. In VR, that's a lot less likely to happen.
It's still possible.
It's still possible.
They have remote desktop. So that some will be in VR, but they'll see their fingers, they'll see their keyboard.
Yeah. So that's coming too. So this is more of a limitation of that the tech isn't there yet, like the software hasn't been developed for that yet, than like a fundamentally different thing about VR versus laptops, I guess. So yeah, it'll come, I guess, too. So this is currently the way that there's a limitation of VR, which is actually a benefit for doing meetings because they're putting their full attention on you. That's something we've discussed in the lab as well.
Oh, okay, this comes up. Yeah. You speak about this. Because it's not just locomotion you're looking at.
That's just my current project. No, I've got several projects. I'm kind of, for my thesis, I'm kind of working on like a multi-purpose, kind of like Workrooms, but there's other focuses in there as well. But yeah, just kind of similar to Workrooms in general.
And you guys are generally looking at work use cases? Generally.
Kind of, yeah. So one of the projects was connecting military families remotely with their children because they have a more difficult time using Zoom. Children do have a more difficult time using Zoom because you're concentrating on a video feed. But if they had something fun to do in VR and they could meet their play some sort of ball game together in VR. Yeah, and that's a more deeply connected way to play than on a computer, I guess, on just a normal voice call. So those kinds of ideas is partially what it's also being used for.
And this is, so your PhD, what was your undergrad or master's? Or
I did undergrad in computer science and computer engineering.
Okay. At the time, was that way to VR, where you explored?
So I started working in the research lab that I'm currently in as an undergrad. So I just liked it there, liked the professor and stuff, so I stayed there.
How'd you get into VR?
So that's DK1 days, I didn't like.
DK, whoa,
I didn't buy
back.
anything. I didn't buy anything then, but I knew about it and I was interested in it.
This is like 2013, 14 era, right?
It's around then, yeah.
Wow, that's that's coming on a decade. It's nearly a decade.
It's a while ago, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, my first headset was the CV1. I got it around, I guess I should know this because it was around August 2017, and then very soon after I started playing Echo.
Wow, cool.
So I wasn't like in the beta of Echo or anything, but it was pretty soon after. And how I got into VR, like how I decided to, well, I guess getting into VR is part of it, is getting into VR in the studies. And so I like flight sims, and that's how I got into computers in general a long time ago with FSX, and like into computer hardware and stuff. And so I kind of like started learning more about computers at the time because and also 3D modeling and like Blender and that kind of stuff because I used X-Plane, which you could design your own planes with, you can model them and stuff. And
Right.
they eventually added a VR mode, which I was interested in, but I didn't have a VR headset. And I took a class called VR with the professor that I'm now doing my PhD under. And after class, I saw that he had an X-Plane icon on his desktop. While he was in class, I saw the icon there, and I'm like, after class, I'm like, oh, you tried out X-Plane in VR? It was interesting to try. And then I got to talking more, of course, and then we talked about getting into the lab and stuff. So
if there's any Generation Z watching this who were, I don't know, like 5 in that kind of era, they don't know what it was like to be around when VR was in that phase of CV1. Could you describe, like, in those classes, a class on VR, like what was the general?
Well, so he's also, my professor has also told me a lot about how VR has changed. I wasn't actually in the super old days of this, but it's changed a lot.
Is he older? Is he talking like 90s? You know, Nintendo.
He's not that old, but he's been around for that, and he's been doing VR stuff for 15 years or something. I don't know exactly.
Yeah,
but he used to teach doing VR programming in C++. You had to design your own engine. You were doing OpenGL. You were just working low level. You weren't using a game engine like Unity. That's what he teaches now.
Yeah. Layman terms, like this is
super low level stuff, and
low level means like, how would you describe low level?
You're working with really small building blocks rather than like a sandbox that somebody else has built for you to build with.
Yeah. The way I understand, if software is like his software, we normally code with like things at the surface level. You're going like down deep to the root where it really is 0, 1, 0.
You're building the tools that are now already built that you work upon.
Yes.
I mean, people still do low-level stuff, but like that's now the tools are good enough that you would just use those generally for VR development at least. And so VR in general. So the year before I joined the lab, he had bought a $10,000 headset, which the next year, we used Google Cardboard in the original class.
Forgot that existed.
Which was better in a lot of ways.
Okay.
Than the $10,000 headset he bought.
That is remarkable.
And then obviously CV1 stuff came around. It's even better. Yeah, CV1 and the original Vive were at the time. For some reason, CV1 has aged a lot better than the Vive. I don't know exactly why. I feel like that's the case. Maybe it's not true. Maybe it's just because we have to use it.
Because we're biased, because we're in the Echo world where we're seeing what other niche is CV1 still being used? Everyone else is just getting thrown away. They don't need it anymore.
Yeah, could be true. Yeah,
I'm sure there's Vive still knocking around being used.
We've got some in the lab, but we're not using them.
The massive ones that come with them.
Yeah, no, I think the controller is the big thing. So controllers in general have moved more to the CV1 style of molded to your hand and actually more natural.
They're beautifully designed the CV1 controllers because it's an Xbox control, just broken.
I mean, the nice thing about Vive ones is you can use either one. You can swap them if you want, but that also causes software problems. Of now, as a designer, you have to say, okay, well, which one is which, and stuff like that. But the toolkits around VR development and everything has gotten so much more mature now that it's a lot easier to develop for these things. And so and now he teaches with Quest, and so now everybody, you don't have to have a Windows computer even, you can develop one when a lot of students have Macs, and so MacBooks, and so you can just develop 4 Quest applications on a MacBook even. It's just a lot easier, and so he has a bunch of them, you can send them out to people who don't have them already. He's saying, like, instead of a textbook, you can buy a Quest kind of thing. Like, it's the same price for some of our textbooks, right? It's $300, but like you get to resell it if afterwards if you don't need it. It's kind of like some textbooks. So it's changed so much, and it's made VR development so much more accessible that it's actually not difficult to make a VR app of some kind. It's difficult to make a good one, but it's changed so much. And obviously this year, in a few more days, I guess, 3 days, 4 days.
25th, so 3 days.
It's Tuesday, yeah. No, it's coming real soon. It's going to change again.
Yeah.
So one of the problems we complain about a lot is like hand tracking and controllers. You can't do them at the same time, right? So the big thing I think for hand tracking is social interactions, like talking with your hands and that kind of stuff. Like these things that you can do that with controllers is just not nearly as natural. You don't get the emotions passed through nearly as well, but with hand tracking you do, and you can't just like use one controller for precise input and then use a hand to talk with.
What do you think of the face tracking?
But theoretically that works. Face tracking, the same thing. It's also very much a social thing. That's like it's to better communicate with people, which I think is really cool.
Speaking of tracking, did you see when they announced about legs as well?
Yeah, which has been, I guess, hinted for a long time. I don't know. So it's theoretically possible. I did a project in some other class about like you can set your phone down somewhere and then use an AI tracker model for detecting where your full body is, and then sending that data to the Quest. So I had that working in some capacity, which was kind of cool. But like obviously the persistence a lot better. But this is really cool because.
I think I'm asking because does that tie into locomotion at all?
Not really. It shouldn't. It would change visually. It would make it look awkward if someone's legs, you can see that they're actually not moving their legs, but their avatar is moving right in a smooth way. So it wouldn't be necessary for all applications, but it's definitely an interesting thing.
Just to change topic a little bit. What other hobbies did you have? You spoke about flight simulators as a teenager. Were you always a gamer?
It was mostly because of that, I guess. I didn't play too many games otherwise.
Were you into physical sports at all?
No, not really. I played some soccer when I was younger. I guess the other gaming thing is that doing some speedrunning. Speedrunning Mirror's Edge for a while. It's also related to understanding how games work and stuff.
Yeah.
Speedrunning is definitely heavily into that area. I want to kind of dissect this game and see, okay, well, why can I not just skip to this region? It's because I have to hit this loading trigger over here first, that kind of thing.
So breaking the game down.
If you knew exactly how the game was built, it would become a lot easier to do this, right? So you know where to poke the holes into the game, to break it properly so you can finish it as fast as possible.
Did you do that for any other games?
I speedrun Lone Echo 1 and Lone Echo 2. Well, Lone Echo 2 I really played like once or twice. But
how quick did you finish Lone Echo 1?
Lone Echo 1 is down to an hour, 9 minutes or so.
Wow.
I'm not the first place anymore, which I'm happy about because now other people got into it.
Yeah.
I mean, I wasn't the first one into it either, but I took the time down quite a bit. I think it was 1 hour 15 or 20 or something. Got it down to 1 hour 9. Another person got it down even quite a bit farther to like 1 hour.
Which is remarkable, because what is the normal run time? It's quite a long game.
My first run was
8 hours?
7 or 8 or something, yeah. I mean, you can get down a lot by just not exploring, right? But if you just did a normal, like, I'm going to play through this fast, I think it's generally around, like, 2 hours or so. If you're really trying to be fast, but you don't know the tricks. Lone Echo 1's a really interesting game to speedrun because of the movement system, first of all, right? And as an Echo player, like arena player, there's an advantage there. Now I know this movement system so well. The previous speedrunners before me didn't, right? They were mostly coming from the speedrunning world and not from the Echo Arena world. So they were good at breaking things, but not at doing the movement system specifically. So that helped a lot. But also the stuff that you can do in there is really cool. So you can pull yourself through walls. Like you can see in the lobby too that people coming out of the lobby.
I've never worked out how to do that, but I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, but no, there's tricks you can do. Like those techniques actually came from the speedrunning.
Interesting.
World. So yeah, in the old lobby, even once they found out these tricks, when they really started to do this speedrunning thing, there was obviously the Palador, and this was maybe before your time as well.
Go on.
Where there was a hole in the old lobby.
There was a hole in your lobby.
Where you could basically super easily just boost into it and pop out into the outside. And now, but using these techniques where you could use like a toy of some kind and use both hands on it and you can pull yourself through, basically all of the cracks in the old lobby you could get through. So there's like 100 different places you could get out. And then that same technique is now, I think, necessary to get out of the new lobby.
Right.
But yeah, those techniques you can do in Lone Echo and get out basically anywhere. So you can clip all through places and like there's the biomass tunnel and going to the reactor or something. I don't know if you played Lone Echo 1.
I have. Lone Echo 2, I've got about 2 hours in. And I think but Lone Echo 1, I finished.
It's a good game. Lone Echo 2?
Yeah?
It's good. I'll pick that.
Yeah, I'll pick it back up.
Speedrun's about 4 hours though.
Speedrun is 4 hours.
Yeah, there's no tricks. There's no tricks there. I mean, there's some tricks, but like just for extra speed, but not. There's no clipping, no skips really. There's clipping, but you can't do anything because the way they programmed it is a lot more. You need to have finished this dialogue but the next dialogue can happen. And so there's no way to skip forward very easily. If someone finds it, that's good. That'll become a lot more popular because 4 hours is kind of long speed run. But Lone Echo 2 hit me because it's like I waited so long on it, right? I played Lone Echo 1 a long time ago, and like Arena is such a big part of my life, and then like seeing more of the story, seeing more of the world in Lone Echo 2 is really cool. It's really nice.
Yeah, you're selling me. I'm going to go back and play it. I've got it, because it's PC VR, I just moved on and go back to it. Yeah.
I played some of it on Quest 2 Link. Usually I was on CV1, but Quest 2 Link has a lot higher resolution.
This is Air Link? Or
I played Wire Link, I think. I don't know. My Air Link setup isn't too great with my battery now, I'm not sure.
Right.
But I switched back to CV1 because it's more comfortable.
Cool. So we're in 2022 right now. You're doing your PhD. How many more years have you got?
Not sure.
Or it's one of those.
1 or 2.
Okay. What? So what are your plans with that going forward, and then like long term? Are you planning to stick around in Echo world?
I don't know.
Something
I'm not
else
leaving
caught
Echo
your eye?
anytime soon.
Okay.
Yeah.
What are you curious about as an academic, as a research?
Game dev in general.
Yeah.
It's not really the degree you should get for game dev, I guess. Probably not. I don't know. You don't need a PhD to do game dev. But
Okay. Fair.
I like game dev.
Well, if you're, nothing is valid. If you're going into more like research side of things.
Yeah, like VRL is not called. Is it called VRL? FRL. FRL. It's not called FRL. It's just RL now, right? Facebook Reality Labs used to be called.
Yeah, the branding's mad.
Yeah.
I can't even keep up with it. I'm employed by them.
I think they just dropped the F. It's just RL, but it doesn't sound good. So I don't know.
It got changed to Meta because now they're pushing the work. It's now Meta Work Experience. So MWE.
I did not know they changed that again. Okay.
But it's so hard to keep up with. It's just Meta now. I think that's the easy way to follow it. They might change it. I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's an interesting route there. I don't know. I haven't really decided on things. Keep my options open.
You turned up today, right? This morning?
No, I arrived Thursday night, like at 1 a.m.
Oh, okay, you've been around for a little bit.
Yeah.
Cool. But being here, what's the experience like? So personally, coming to an event like this, how do I say this? You get, when you're in your city, in your work, going to your job, playing in your headset in your room, you're in your little echo chamber, you're in your little run around, your little hamster wheel. When, especially for me, traveling thousands of miles into Toronto, new city I've never been to before, it's a real chance to get your bearings again and be, like, it wakes up the part of you that is required to just get by. Okay, where am I eating tonight? How do I work that out? It wakes you up to start solving problems like that.
Yeah.
And I find
change of pace, change of context, everything.
Yeah, just like a shock to the system. And that shock to the system, as a secondary, I'm struggling with my English today. As a side effect of that wake up, is that you start getting a bit more creative thinking about other things as well.
Yeah.
And one of those things is just like inspiration. You start having ideas, you're talking to other people, you're bouncing ideas off other people. There's a whole network
ideas
there.
from other people. That's totally it. Because maybe their idea was in this specific context, but they tell you the idea and they're like, oh, this would actually work in the kind of thing that I'm doing in this larger scope and stuff like that. And I've definitely gotten a lot of ideas from people today already. So it's really cool.
Yeah? What's on top of your mind?
I was talking to KFC, I think, and he was working on something in the replay viewer, and I'm like, this would be really good. Like, we want to push this forward. Let's get this out there for people to use. And so, these kind of things. I remember there's some things earlier about Spark as well, but I don't know. People don't want to on the internet necessarily, or like in Discord, as much. Just say. Like request things from you too much. I don't know. I get that with Spark, right? It's like, I put out a survey recently of actually just give me your ideas, please. Your requests, right? What don't you like about Spark right now? Because if you don't give them a field, like a field to put it in, then maybe people want to complain about it, right? And I want to make it as frictionless as possible to use this kind of thing. So talking to people as well, you get the same thing. So it's good, I think, to get ideas from people.
Okay, but one more question. Are you aware of Elon Musk's Neuralink?
I've seen some things about it, yeah.
If you had to pick a binary answer, would you say yes or no? Chip or no chip?
To get one myself?
To get a chip implanted into your head so your brain is now directly connected to the internet?
Currently, no. It's got to give me a lot of value. It's got to have a lot of assurances about how it works.
Yeah.
But currently, no.
Currently, no.
Yeah. It's going to happen though. That's the direction that VR is going to end up in, I think.
Does it feel like an inevitability, whatever that word is?
Yeah, it does.
It's going to happen.
It does. I don't know. I hope there's enough, like, social structure put into it that people decide that yes, this is going to be okay with us, and what people decide. But it's gonna migrate over time too. Like stuff becomes more socially acceptable over time. This is gonna happen with AR glasses. Before this, like right now, it's not socially acceptable for me just to go and like use a HoloLens everywhere, right? I wouldn't feel comfortable doing that, I guess.
Are you aware of Ray-Ban stories?
Yeah, it's the same thing. So it's interesting. So those seem a lot more socially. I don't see people complaining about those too much. Whereas with a Google Glass, it was just immediate kick out, right? People couldn't handle being like.
Was it too weird at the time?
Yeah, and those even I don't know if the Ray-Ban stories have like a recording light. Do they?
They do. So Ray-Ban stories, there's no AR element to them actually.
Yeah.
You put them on, they record, and they talk to you. You've got voice assistant, and they play Bluetooth music. That's basically it.
Yeah, so I guess recording light is probably a law thing as well. I think they have. Every camera has to have recording.
Yeah.
But it's so much less noticeable that somebody could be recording you compared to even Google Glass. Google Glass was very obvious that they like the camera. There was a camera pointing at you.
Yeah.
And it was also probably obvious. I don't know. They had light on that as well. That it's actually doing recording, and the battery was short enough that you couldn't record that long anyway. So. But for some reason that was just not socially acceptable, and I think that's changed. I think it was just early, and AR headsets in general are going to change, and so the same thing with Neuralink as well.
Do you play with AR technology in your lab?
Yeah, we have HoloLenses, and we're using some more things.
Magic Leap? You play with those?
I've used it. We don't have one in the lab, but Magic Leap 2 is looking pretty interesting.
Yeah.
I haven't tried that.
Magic Leap is surprisingly good. I've played with both HoloLens and Magic Leap. And I was surprised. Magic Leap is just considering when it was made as well. It's quite old now.
I guess my experience with all AR headsets so far has been that it's just actually really bad. Right. It's just we're not there yet. We're not going to be there yet for a little while. I don't know, like 10 years, something like that. I feel like before it's overlaid AR. The stuff like Ray-Ban Stories, where or Google Glass even, where it's just a screen. It's not tracking any world space or anything. It's not overlaying onto your real world. It's just giving you information. Whether that be through audio, I guess that would be an easy way to do it, or just a tiny screen. That's a lot easier to make small. But full field of view overlay stuff, we're ways off.
If 1,000 people watch this and one of them happens to be a 14 or 13-year-old kid who's really engaged with this content, enjoys what you're talking about, and they want to go into like research of virtual reality, technology, AR, blah, 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 what advice would you give them to get into that?
Just get started. Try to, like, people have ideas. I don't know, maybe if you don't have ideas, you can find something that like somebody else has made and just try to recreate it. Try to actually do a thing.
Try and do a thing.
Open up Unity and like make a thing. Just make something. And you'll find out if you actually like it, and also if like what the cool parts about it are, right? Like the design challenges that are involved in making some kind of application, some kind of game maybe. It's really cool. And there's a lot of choices you gotta make, and like there's a lot of freedom in VR that the design space isn't finalized, right? Like in 2D games, there's a lot of UI concepts like X button top right, this kind of thing that all the menus have, right? Like you've got tabs on the top. Like you don't have to do that in VR. You could do it completely differently. Your UI could be all around you. Your UI could be part of the world. Like you could, in Gorilla Tag, there's so many good ideas in there of like your menu is the fact that you move to this different part of the world.
Yeah,
that's your level selector, right? This is real world.
I think that genuinely gets overlooked as well. The design of the physical user interface.
Yeah, no, the stuff Lemming does with design choices in the way
you're right.
is great.
Revolutionary. And it's just him, his basement, or his bedroom. No?
He got Rad David and Oculus David White.
Yes, so these are employees of Rad.
Well, not anymore.
Not anymore, yeah, they've moved on and now are working with...
One of them was from Rad, the other guy was from Oculus.
Oh, okay.
Or used to, I don't know how long ago he stopped doing that.
Are you aware, is the team grown any more than that? Or is it still just a handful?
I think they have some like moderator things on it. I don't know if officially or not.
How he's like held that down, that's like one of the biggest player bases in terms of...
Yeah, he like, exploded.
It's insane.
It's nice.
Insane.
I mean, I don't mind the user count thing. He did that.
The user count?
In his Discord server, he's got a bot channel that you can say what the current player count is.
Yeah.
It was really cool watching that go up a bunch, right? So it makes a little graphic of how many users are in it.
Yeah.
That's something. Originally it was made to like find people to play with, because most of the time there was nobody on. The max that I'd ever seen at the time was like 10. So you're like, okay, is anybody on? And so everybody's just typing that in Discord saying, can you want to test this with me? And so there was just a bot that said, anybody who was in, it would add to the count, so you could see if people were already on or not. And now it's not serving that purpose anymore, because there's always somebody on. I think it hit like 60,000 concurrents at some point. But it's still cool to watch the numbers go up, because they've gone up quite a bit.
And they're still going up, or is it? Because I know it's
there was a peak at 60,000. I think the peaks are more like 20,000 now.
Right.
But yeah, I mean,
But still, I believe it's one of the most. Like,
20,000 concurrents is crazy for any game.
All right, I'm gonna have to wrap this up just because I'm competing in the next 6 minutes. But I really,
Yeah,
really appreciate you taking the time to have this conversation. I could keep talking to you for hours as well. Maybe work out part 2 at some point. But yeah, I really appreciate you taking the time. Incredible work
Thank you.
that you've built, and I hope you stick around in this world because you've got some talent.
Yeah, been here a while. So no promises.
Nice, let's wrap it up. I've been MoneyMitch26, it's top of the pop, IRL, and we're going to close it off now.